Hello, students. Today we are going to start a very interesting journey into the world of psychology, the science that helps us understand human behavior, thoughts, emotion, and the mind. So, this is class 11 psychology, chapter 1. What is psychology? Okay, students, why do two people react differently in the same situation? Or why do we forget some things but remember others? How does the brain control emotions and behavior? So, all these questions are studied in psychology. So, chapter 1 introduces us to psychology as a discipline. We will learn what psychology is, how psychologists study behavior, different fields of psychology, why psychology is important in daily life. So, every day we observe emotions, stress, learning, friendship, motivation, and decision making. So, psychology helps us understand these experiences scientifically. For example, when a child feels anxious before exam or happy after success, psychology explains the reasons behind those feelings and behaviors. So, when you start your chapter 1, so there is a quote which is quoted by Norman Cousins, that is, the growth of the human mind is still the highest adventure on earth, which means this chapter is about understanding that amazing adventure, the human mind. So what does it quote us? So it helps us to learn psychology as a human intelligence and imagination continue to grow. So, understanding ourselves and the world is the greatest adventure of all. So, this quote by Norman Cousins means that the development of the human mind, our ability to think, learn, imagine, create, and understand, is one of the greatest journey in life. So, you can see on the screen meaning of psychology, what is psychology, main features of psychology, goals of psychology, psychology and everyday life, branches of psychology, methods of psychology, psychology and other disciplines, nature of psychology. So, all these topics we are going to cover in this chapter 1. So, first of all, it's an introduction part, that is, what is psychology. We will discuss psychology as a discipline, psychology as a natural science, psychology as a social science. So, understanding mind and behavior. So, popular notions about the discipline of psychology, evolution of psychology. So, there is also some interesting landmarks in the evolution of modern psychology is given in this chapter. So, we will learn development of psychology in India, branches of psychology, psychology with the other disciplines, everyday psychology. So, there are some key terms also we are going to learn in this chapter. So, what is psychology, children? So, the term psychology is derived from two Greek words, that is psyche, which means soul, and logos, which means science or study of a subject. So, psychology means study of mind and behavior. So, next is, what is psychology? Psychology is a scientific study of behavior, experiences, mental processes. So, it helps us understand how people think, feel, and behave in different situations. So, a discipline is defined both in terms of what it studies and how it studies. So, in fact, more in terms of how or methods it uses. So, keeping this in view, psychology is defined formally as a science which studies mental processes, experiences, and behavior in different contexts. So, main features of psychology, it's a scientific study. Psychology uses observations, experiments, testing, and research methods to study behavior scientifically. Study of behavior. Behavior includes speaking, walking, laughing, crying, learning, reacting, etc. So, both visible and invisible responses are studied. Study of mental processes. Mental processes include thinking, memory, learning. problem solving, decision making, emotions, etc. So we can learn here from different point of views of the psychologist. So psychologists also study experiences of people. So experiences are subjective in nature. Behaviors are responses or reactions we make or activities we engage in. So these are we are going to learn in this chapter number 1. So when we say experiences are internal to the experiencing person, then we refer to state of consciousness or awareness or mental processes. So we use our mental processes when we think or try to solve a problem. To know or remember something, one level at which these mental processes are reflected is the brain activity. Now, psychology as a discipline. So, psychology studies behavior, experiences, and mental processes as we discussed. It seeks to understand and explain how the mind works and how different mental processes result in different behaviors. So, when we observe others as common persons, our own point of views or ways of understanding the world influence our interpretations of their behavior and experiences. Now, psychology as a natural science. So, it has been mentioned earlier that psychology has its roots in philosophy, right? So, modern psychology has developed because of the application of the scientific method to study psychological phenomena. So, science places a great deal of emphasis on objectivity, which can be obtained if there is conscience on the definition of a concept and how it can be measured. So, psychology was influenced by Descartes and later on by the developments in the physics, has grown by following what is called a hypothetical deductive model. Now, how we see psychology as a social science. So, psychology as a social science because it studies the behavior of human beings in their socio-cultural context. So, humans are not only influenced by the socio-cultural context; they also create them. So, psychology as a social science discipline focuses on humans as social beings, right? So, next, what are the goals of psychology? So, psychology is describable, it means understanding. We understand what is happening. It is explainable, finding reasons behind behavior. Predictable, so predicting future behavior. So, control or modification, helping improve behavior positively. So, popular notions about a discipline of psychology. So, we mentioned about that every day almost every one of us acts like a psychologist. We try to understand why someone behaved in this manner in which he or she did and come up with ready explanations. So there are very popular notions about the discipline of psychology. So, evolution of psychology. So psychology is a modern discipline which is influenced to a large extent by Western developments. Has a short history. So, it grew out of ancient philosophy concerned with questions of psychological significance. So, you can see psychology in everyday life. We can see psychology in education, in parenting, in mental health, in workplace, in relationship, sports, health management. We can see psychology everywhere. So, an American psychologist William James, who had set up a psychological laboratory in Cambridge, and then in the early 20th century, a new perspective called Gestalt psychology emerged in Germany as a reaction to the structuralism of Wundt. So it focused on the organization of perspectual experiences. So instead of looking at the components of the mind, the Gestalt psychologist argued that when we look at the world, our perspectual experience is more than the sum of the components of the perception. Now let us discuss branches of psychology. So experimental psychology, which studies basic mental processes through experiments. Clinical psychology deals with mental disorders and emotional problems. In educational psychology, we study learning and teaching processes. Social psychology studies behavior in social situations. Developmental psychology studies growth and development across lifespan. In industrial organization studies, we study workplace behavior and productivity. In health psychology, we study relationship between health and behavior. So in this chapter, there are some interesting landmarks also in the evolution of modern psychology. I insist you all, please go and check here if you have book with you. So please check that some that landmarks which has given in your chapter. So it is when and who had contributed in the in the era of psychology, right? So you all have to know about the evolution of the psychology from the primitive psychology to modern psychology. Now you can see what is cognition also. So cognition is a process of knowing. It involves thinking, understanding, perceiving, memorizing, problem solving, and a host of other mental processes by which our knowledge of the world develops. So psychology contains cognition. So because most of the part of the psychology depends upon the cognitive development of the individual. So, some cognitive psychologists view this human mind as an information processing system like the computer. So, mind, according to this view, is like a computer and it receives, processes, transforms, stores, retrieves information. So, modern cognitive psychology views human beings as actively constructing their minds through their exploration into the physical and the social world. So, in this chapter, you can learn about the Piaget's view of child development, which will be discussed later. Later is considered a constructivist theory of development of the mind. So, development of psychology in India. So, many Indian philosophical tradition is rich in its focus on mental processes and reflections on human consciousness, self, mind, body, relations, and a variety of mental functions such as cognition, perception, illusion, attention, and reasoning. So now let's discuss branches of psychology. Already we have discussed um, cognitive psychology, biological psychology, neuropsychology, developmental psychology. This is also um, the major branches of psychology. Social psychology, cross culture and cultural psychology, environmental psychology, health psychology, clinical and counseling psychology, industrial organizational psychology, educational psychology, sports psychology, and there are other emerging branches also. The interdisciplinary focus on research and application of psychology has led to the emergence of varied areas like aviation psychology, space psychology, military psychology, forensic psychology, rural psychology, engineering psychology, managerial psychology, community psychology, psychology of women, and political psychology, to name a few. So, psychology with the other disciplines we already have discussed. It is interrelated with the biology also, because brain, we study brain, nervous system, behavior in the psychology also. With the sociology, because we study social behavior in groups in psychology. Philosophy, our thinking, consciousness, and knowledge. In education, learning and teaching processes. In medicine, mental health and treatment. So these are psychology is interrelated with the other discipline also. So we can see a lot of scope in the psychology. So what is the nature of psychology? As you can we can assume psychology is a science, a social science, and a biological science also. So it studies both internal experiences and external behaviors. So psychology studies human behavior and mental processes using scientific methods. It helps us to understand ourselves and others better. So many of these, the potential of psychology in solving the problems of life is being realized more and more. So there are some methods of psychology also, how we can measure the psychology experiment. So in observational method we watch behavior carefully, and then we come to the point. And in experimental methods studies behavior under controlled conditions. We will study psychology through case study method, detailed study of one person of situation, interview methods, survey methods, to collect information through questions, through information from many people. So these are the methods we use in psychology. So psychology is a modern discipline aimed at understanding the complexity of mental processes, experiences, and behavior of individuals in different contexts. So it is treated as a natural as well as a social science. So important terms we have studied here: behavior, which means action and reactions of a person; cognition, mental activities like thinking and memory; emotion, feelings like happiness or sadness; motivation means force that derives behavior; personality means unique qualities of a person. So there are some challenges also in psychology. Means human behavior is changeable, means changes every time. Emotions are complex. People behave differently in different situations. These are the some challenges uh, in which sometimes psychology is very difficult to measurable. For that we that's why there are the methods of psychology to because the behavior, how the behavior is measurable, how the emotions are measurable. So sometimes it is challenging also. So key points for this is the major school of psychological thoughts are structuralism, functionalism, behavioralism, Gestalt school, psychoanalysis, humanistic psychology, and cognitive psychology. So these are the major schools of psychology. And so more recently, a need is felt to have multi-interdisciplinary initiative to arrive at a better understanding of reality. So psychology is a discipline, not merely contributing to the development of theoretical knowledge about human behavior, but contributing to the solution of problems at different level. So psychologists are employed to help in diverse activities in a variety of settings, including schools, hospitals, industries, training institutes, military and government establishments. So, so psychology helps us to understand ourselves and others better. It explains how people think, learn, and behavior in everyday life. So, okay, children. So, today we understood that psychology is not only about mental illnesses, it is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. So it helps us to understand ourselves and others better. So there are some questions also like what is psychology, why is psychology called a science, name one field of psychology, how is psychology useful in daily life. So the textual questions also: what is behavior, give examples of overt and covert behavior, how can we distinguish scientific psychology from the popular notions about the discipline of psychology, or give a brief account of the evolution of psychology, problems for which collaboration of psychologists with other disciplines, differentiate between a psychologist or a psychiatrist, a counselor, and a clinical psychologist, describe some of the areas of everyday life where understanding of psychology can be put to practice. How can knowledge of the field of environmental psychology be used to promote environment friendly behavior? So these are the questions which is given in your textbook and NCERT textbook. Project ideas also there at the end of your chapter. So we will also definitely discuss, or I will make one video on these questions, and we will discuss this also. Okay, students, this is all for today. So, psychology teaches us not only how the mind works, but also how people grow, learn, feel, and connect with others. So, thank you, students. In our next class, we will explore more about the questions, or the um, discuss the questions also. So, stay curious, because every human mind has a story to understand. Thank you.